Good evening, fight fans. Welcome to another great Headkicks and Haymakers. I'm your boy Bodkins, and with me is my guy, Mr. Bobby Blunt. Oh, man, what a great week in the past MMA. Before we get to last week's card and this week's UFC Apex 100, Bobby, before we went off the air, right as like this part time last week, it was confirmed Bilal Muhammad pulls out due to an infected toe of UFC 310. Who do you think should headline that card? Shavkat has kind of said he wants to stay on that card. But then do you have to flip it around too? Because my fighter of the year, going to be fighter of the year, Pantoja is fighting for his title too.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking news, a week after, getting the Ilya Max fight. This is towards the end of the year. It was going to be another best versus best matchup. And now there's kind of that big hole. If it wasn't for Shavkat needing to, set up everything with his visa and he's already here, I would really want them to shelve this and just wait for Bilal to be healthy. But that being said, knowing that he, is traveled and is already in Florida, I guess do a fill-in fight. I just really don't want it to be for the interim title. I do not see the point when, especially you look at greatest example, look at Tom Aspinall,
I think I hate the Tom Aspinall situation as a Tom Aspinall fan.
And I just don't, realistically, I don't think there's any doubt that Bilal should have pulled out of that fight. I know a lot of people are trying to put this, push through mentality. Let me explain something. He is now the champion, and Drickus learned this the proper way and used it. Unfortunately, Sean Strickland didn't, because he, just said, "Oh yeah, you need me, here we go." But when you have these nagging injuries and stuff like that, they work on your time, and you want to be completely 100%, especially for Shavkat. This ain't no, fucking around fight, like a Leon rematch or something like that. This guy has every single fight that he's had has been a finish. So big blow. To me, I really do not give a shit. There is nothing they could do to appease me for what I was expecting. I know they will land on their feet. And if you tell me it's going to be Shavkat still on the card, I think they pivot to Usman. Considering Ian Gary and Buckley just got booked. But I really just don't want the interim title. Maybe I just got to blank that out of my mind because, all those belts really are is just to have that there to be at the top of the pay-per-view. I necessarily wouldn't be shocked if they flip Pantoja as the main event and give us a new co-main event. But, I think Shavkat should stay on the card, and I don't really see the point of doing the interim unless, if you really want to talk. To me, the fight does not get any bigger, the whole belt versus belt thing. If they actually get paid more for that, as in both.
I think they do. I've heard conflicting reports on that. I've heard one time interim champs don't get points, but then, or maybe it's vacant. I guess if you're vacant, you don't get but I think maybe interim does. Because Ariel said the interim gets the pay-per-view points. So at that point in time, when it's champ to champ, let Chav get his money. A couple things I'll say is I think Bilal's getting a lot of shit mainly because he gave Connor shit when Connor pulled out because of his toe. Now I will say I would not be. I saw the photo of Bilal's toe. I would not be jumping on, fighting, ready to fight anybody, much less Shavkat, like you said. So I get it, but he just talked a lot of shit about Connor when he pulled out. So we went ahead, he went ahead and now he's getting in return. What goes around comes around type thing. So
I agree, but I wasn't necessarily talking about the trolls online. I was more referring to like people that were like covering it and like, really, trying to push like, you
okay,
could easily fought through that. And it's like, yeah, you could have if you were like still chasing the win show, but like, take your, like when you get that belt, take your time, because when you don't have that belt, they ain't gonna give two shits about you. So
it's somebody like Bilal who they don't really want to be in business with. They're not gonna do him any favors.
Yeah,
and that's why I think that they will do the interim. I do think they'll do an interim. And I would have loved to see Shavkat Ian Gary just for some new blood as the intern. But I do think the only way, I don't know how you justify Kamaru Usman. I guess, just to sell pay-per-views. And you have to do the interim. That way you can maybe get him and Bilal, who have talked a lot of shit.
So that's my number one reason why I don't want it to be the interim, because I'm assuming the opponent is going to be Usman.
Yeah, I think if that's the only way I could see it. I could see Shavkat staying on this and taking, fighting somebody, Sean Brady, Jack Della Mena, somebody like that. But if it's Kamaru Usman, then just go ahead and make it for the title. Then you do it that way.
Yeah, and I think they probably will, to like close out it with a bang, and I can already see how you can necessarily book it the same, and like you said, kind of go off the name that Usman does have, because he still did decent pay-per-view numbers. I know a lot of people equate that to the Masvidal side, but when he started winning consistently, people always wanted to tune in. But it also necessarily wouldn't shock me if they figure they don't have to save the card and they could just swap that, put Pantoja on top there, and then they were kind of already running this dude at the top of the line. So like, why not? I mean, obviously there's a reason it was co-main event in the first place.
Yeah.
But, I noticed the one you did not bring up was your boy who would probably, if he took a fourth fight against Goliath, it'd be pretty hard for me to deny him a Fighter of the Year trophy.
Yeah, I mean, they could call him, but he doesn't. I'm seeing photos of him doing other things. Doesn't look like they're calling him. I don't think they're calling Poton to fill in this spot. I think that it's either you do the welterweight, welterweight, or you just don't have that fight at all, and it's just the flyweights. Leading off that card, and you just kind of bump it up. It won't be the first time that they kind of punted on this pay-per-view, and we've seen them do that with flyweights, especially.
If they rebook like Shavkat, Bilal to like February, I know there's January, there's a pay-per-view in LA, and they're saying that it's going to be Sarukian versus Islam.
Yeah,
that thing would do banana numbers if Bilal Shavkat was also the co-main. Like, you'd be bringing in a lot of different eyes. And so if it's just pushing it back a couple of weeks, I think that's a much better solution than I'm sorry, anyone coming in on short notice is going to get smoked by Shavkat. So, I mean, what are we even doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're just talking about the fallout of the main event at UFC 310, where Bilal Muhammad, his toe is infected. So we're just kind of who would you like to see kind of fill Shopcott, or if they're going to do a co-main, who do you think would be the best main event there to serve?
First off, bro, my bad. Kids eating Chick-fil-A take a little longer than time. But things happen, but we make adjustments. That's what we do. We're professionals. So first off, bro, how do you get an infection in the bone in your toe? His whole foot. First of all, I didn't know that Bilal had feet like Frodo Baggins and they were like hairy and covered in hair. But hey, that's he wanted to show the people. But how did this happen? Is one of my things. Like, did he accidentally miss somebody and like kick the fence and the fence is covered in whatever? But I was hearing Bobby when I was coming on, and to replace that level of fight would be very hard to do. I think we got a great point that pretty much anybody that you would put in there on short notice would really probably be at a crazy disadvantage. It would be absolutely no use. But if you want to, maybe you shake the cobwebs off of somebody who's, let's say a la Khalil Roundtree and Poetan, and you go down the line and you do something similar to like maybe who's coming up on there. You got Ian Gary down there at 7.
Ian Gary just got matched up with Joaquin Buckley.
Yeah, and that was what I was saying.
They talked about that. That's what's crazy too. It's like right before that they were kind of chiming in, and then that makes it. Let me ask you real quick. I'll come back to this. Go ahead, Whit, about who's the UFC 310.
Yeah, I was just saying, fantasy wise, of course, Ian Gary and Joaquin Buckley got that match coming up, and that's already something I'm interested in. Shout out to Joaquin Buckley trying to do his thing representing St. Louis. But I don't really like the Jack Della Maddalena fight if he was to do that, or like once again, just imaginary. But Kamaru at that spot, like, do you just throw him to the wolves, so to speak, so he can kind of get that, I'm coming back, I'm coming for my title stuff out of the way? Maybe you do, because there's a possibility that he puts Shavkat in positions that he's uncomfortable in to show us how much of a difference in a fighter he is. I personally am saying this because I believe in Shavkat. Me and you, Watkins, have talked about, Shavkat for a year now watching these fights. But I think the testing ground that he's on right now, where he was going against Bilal, the next ring down, the next tier down, got to be somebody up there. And I would love to see Kamaru on a full camp, maybe on a full camp. But it's really tough, dog, because everybody else, like damn near all the way to 9, has either just had a fight or is already scheduled for one.
Who's that?
No, I was saying everybody pretty much already. Yeah. Everybody up almost to like 8 or 9, either just had a fight or is scheduled for one.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I just looked it up when that card is. It's a 1 month from tomorrow, so you got 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Usman is like already in a camp, because like if he's not fighting on this, he'll probably be fighting in Australia. But yeah, I mean, the reason I think it's Usman mainly is because the other 2 short notice guys that could take this, they ain't going to get visas in under a month, which would be Leon and JDM. So it's Usman by default, unless you still naively believe Kobe Covington, who offered his service.
Oh,
I saw Kobe was wanting to fight Jack Della Maddalena in Miami. When they go to Miami, he wants to fight in Miami because that's his city.
I didn't even think.
Oh yeah, when they going back there?
I skipped over.
I don't know. I know that they're going to make Miami a yearly thing.
Oh, I forgive you for skipping over him, Whit. We don't need to.
I will real quick. I'm back on the Ian Gary thing. What's your guys' take? Because like he was kind of when this happened, Ian Gary was chiming in about wanting to fight Shavkat, but then 2 days late, less than 20 minutes later, you have a fight booked. I think he's running from that fight and was just saying he would, because he already knew he was going to fight Joaquin Buckley.
I think he was asking for it, but you know, I'm glad the UFC went the way they went, because that is a great fight to end the year. Like, Buckley has definitely been on a tear and really looked a lot different.
This is his fourth fight this year, Joaquin
Yeah,
Buckley.
He's looked a lot different at 170. And you know, I know a lot of people stylistically favor Ian in the fight, but as we saw in the Wonder Boy fight, all Buckley needs is one, and Kenny like put it on him there. And when they announced that, it's a big part of the reason why I'm just reschedule Bilal Shavkat, because you know you're getting this fight, and you know the only other real option is Usman. Now I know exactly how they'd book it. They would book it as Kamaru Usman fought Chimaev 5 days and almost won. You know, he dropped that round, but a lot of people argue that he, you know, if it went 5, he could have won. And they would use that to say, yeah, no, he would be game for Shavkat. And I don't mean to sell Usman short at all. I just think, you know, Shavkat was ready to fight for the world title, you know.
Yeah.
So he is completely ready. But, you know, somehow they landed on their feet, even though they lost that one main event. But I don't think there is a easy button solution. And it's kind of shocking, honestly, that we don't already have a resolution to this. I mean, this happened on Monday. Granted, Dana's been a little busy, so maybe
that's why I say, he's running. He's handling a different type of race.
He hasn't had time to, like, you know, make the selfie, because, like, you know, if anyone's going to announce it, he's going to announce it. So, who knows? Maybe they.
Wouldn't have been some shit last night. He announces it at the. You know, he's already thanking the Nelk boys and everybody else and bussing with the boys. It wouldn't have been hilarious. Like, oh, also UFC 310. This is a massive main event.
that would have been wild. Like, yeah, that, you know, there were memes for days for that. I saw a few of those kind of like that, but yeah, I think at this point you just promote. I think the thing they should do is put Pantoja on the main event, and then do, you know, if they do Shavkat Usman, do it co-main for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And, you know, give Shavkat something for his time, but we know that ain't going to happen. That's just wishful thinking in my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Speaking of the flyweights, we saw Brandon Moreno return back to Brandon Moreno. He looked good. That from bell to bell, all 5 rounds, he won every second of that fight. There was never anything this past weekend. Do you think he should be next? Like, do they run it back with him and Royval, who they fought earlier this year? Like, I mean, Brandon Moreno, that was like the Brandon Moreno who fought Figgy all them times and was just like flowing out there, like just a masterclass. Like, I love Brandon Moreno when he is fighting and having fun like that.
Yeah, I mean, he made me question. Yeah, rewatching it, I realized, oh, Moreno just looked that great. Like, at first, I thought, you know, it had to do with the layoff and stuff. But no, like you said, he just looked like, you know, Brandon Moreno before that trilogy.
Yeah.
And you know me, I have no problem with rematches. I know a lot of the times they won't do it, especially at like the top of the thing. It's really going to come down to December there. Like, if anything, Moreno's performance makes this co-main event, or whatever, the flyweight title fight, makes it a little bit more interesting. Because, I mean, you can make an argument that both Royval and Moreno have a case. I really would have no problem if they want to just, you know, match the two of them up. But at the same time, I wouldn't fault the UFC at all for just, like, you know, if Pantoja loses, I think both of them are next in line. Like, they'll probably just go one by one. And but if he wins, pretty much the only options for him are rematches, and that's why this guy is, cutting the line.
Yeah, it's interesting. We was just kind of talking about the Brandon Moreno show Saturday when he just absolutely pieced up Asakura. What do you think? Does that put Moreno like kind of next in the title? Like we just stick on that UFC 310 line with the flyweights. Man, it'll be tough. Like I love Royval beat Moreno just recently, and Pantoja has beaten Moreno 4 times, and I think he's beaten Royval twice.
I feel like Pantoja beat a little bit of everybody at least once, so that's the crazy part. But yeah, it's weird to me because I remember watching it, and I remember thinking to myself, "Don't go to the scorecard. Don't go to the scorecard. Don't go to the scorecard." But Moreno showed a lot of what I like about him. The pressure was on, and he knew he had to perform.
I mean, I love he's got the hands up and he's just moving, man.
Yeah, he looked as good as when he fought Pantoja the first time, and I thought that he could have won that match. For me, like let's look at the numbers, like I always like to do, real quick. And out of nowhere, the thing that jumps out me first is total strikes, right? He's basically doubled that because we got 132 to 63. Like that is the pressure that Brandon Moreno normally brings to a fight that normally has normal regular flyweights, somehow befuddled. You know what I mean? And this is what I like to see when I see a Brandon Moreno fight. He looked like him. I think I can't really put it on a specific thing, but I felt like he wasn't himself in what was that? The Pantoja fight. I really felt like something was missing, maybe from a camp, maybe he was hurt. You know how the fighters do. We'll never really know. But then of course he fought Brandon Royval in a split decision. I thought that he could have won that one as well. But this right here made it look really, really good. So now when we, like you said, you're looking at the division itself, what is possible? Do we want to see Pantoja Moreno 5? I don't know, but somehow, some way, we gotta put Royval and Moreno in something to kind of have one of those title eliminators. And it's a possibility that with that fight, we get Moreno either straight to the title or back down in the rankings. And I don't think that's a negative thing for him. Having reached the peak multiple times and having had lost, that's kind of like a Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, I think, had maybe 3-4 title fights and didn't win.
Three.
Yeah. So, but he made a name for himself by being that good of competition. I think of Brandon Moreno a similar way in the flyweight division. Is it a positive if he gets if we get Pantoja one more time? I think so, because it's one of those matchups where it could literally have gone either way every time I watched it. Other people may feel differently about it. Split decisions, I hate them. But when they get to the scorecard, something like what he did to Albazi is what could turn the tide if he was to go up against Alejandro Pantoja one more time. So I like it. I really did. I was really impressed. He looked really good this time around.
Yeah, he did. And Bobby, let me ask you real quick: who had the better performance? Though I know, was it Moreno or Raw Dog Royval?
I mean, that's so tough to call because, I think I'd be doing a disservice to both of them. I will say the Raw Dog fight, he was put in there to lose. And he was like, I don't think so. To where, I did feel the Moreno fight was much more of a, top versus the top, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, God, they were, when you look at how Moreno rolled back the clock, I find that so much more impressive. But at the same time, the way Raw Dog just like got through that fight was like if I had to pick who to give the title shot to, it would probably be Raw Dog. Just like if I'm going off performance,
but I'll say this: like Moreno had the better fight with Pantoja, you know, so that's this last time it was a close fight, you know, that split decision. So, what's up, Rob?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying like it's almost a disservice to like pick one over the other. I think the UFC is definitely a lot more inclined to do Moreno for sure. But at the same time, it wouldn't shock me if they just want to match the two of them up. It's, you know, flyweight is a really deep division, and like especially at the top, these guys are going to fight multiple times. Like, say if Pantoja loses, who do you think he's going to fight? One of those two guys.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, eventually they're all just going to fight. And you know, those are the fights that it doesn't matter if
Car France is in there somewhere. You know what I mean? Like he needs to
put him in as a co-main event, and you know, no one will mind the rematch.
Yeah, it's gonna happen because their weight class isn't that deep, and it's not that, you know, it's that the top is the same guys because they keep winning.
Yeah,
I mean, can break through.
It's just a shame the UFC does not have Makayev to match up with.
Oh man.
Because yeah.
Yeah, well, he lost his little grappling match. Real quick, last week, Aaron Blanchfield gets the win over Thug Rose. Like Rose was up 2-0 on the scorecards. Aaron just dominated from there on, like from rounds 3, 4, and 5. It seems like it's supposed to. Is she next in line, Whit, for you? Like I'm guessing Menier Finro versus Shevchenko eventually at some point in time, but like Shevchenko, she's on vacation, so she's not like she's fighting anytime soon, and poor Menier Finro is still sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, man. First of all, big shout out to Thug Rose Namajunas. I don't, you know, this was one of those where my heart, my heart in the head. We talk about it all the time, man. I wanted to see one of those old school Thug Rose performances, but I feel like Aaron Blanchfield confused her. Just not really confused her, but just threw like a monkey wrench in whatever the game plan was, you know, and this is another one of those, you know, look at the numbers joints. Aaron Blanchfield, 193 significant strikes. You know, Thug Rose, we got 101. Like, how do we get that disparity evened out in a match where I thought would have been way more even of a match? You know what I mean? Once again, you look at the other numbers, Blanchfield with 2 takedowns, Thug Rose with 1, you know, like significant strikes, 110 to 94. Like this, it wasn't a good matchup for him. I thought going into it, though, this was going to be the one to catapult her right back up to the top where I thought she would belong, to say, okay, well, hey, here goes 2 or 3. You got a title eliminator coming up. Who do you want to fight, or who's next? And somehow, some way, it be, Menier Finro, or maybe you throw Grasso in there somehow. But I don't know where she goes from here. You know what I'm saying? Like, where does Thug Rose go from here? Is this, are we watching a tailspin of a career right here where she begins to go into, you know, obscurity, kind of, sort of? Maybe not, but I really thought that this was the comeback tour for Thug Rose Namajunas, and I'm hurt. I'm hurt that it's derailed right now, to be honest with you.
She won her last 2 fights, and Aaron's right there. Like, she's probably could be next in line. Yes, Bob, maybe you could do Alexa Grasso and Aaron Blanchfield while the title fight is being run out.
Yeah, maybe. So going back to the fight, I thought for a second we were getting that tail, backstory because those first 2 rounds, she was confusing the shit out of Blanchfield.
Right.
And Blanchfield was looking like pretty much exactly like in the Ferro fight. And I was like, this looks kind of problematic. And then credit to her in that 3rd round. I don't know if she just snapped through or what, but she found a way to, implement the grappling, and she won the next 3 rounds. So I found it impressive on 2 levels because at first it looked like Rose was going all the way there. Who knows? Maybe if Trevor Whitman was in her corner, she would have been. And I don't mean that in a joking way. I mean, I always.
Oh no, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah, Trevor Whitman. Shout out to him.
That was very interesting to see her come back. I would say give her the title shot next. I think she'll eventually get there, but there is kind of the log jam, especially with her already having that L. But I don't think the UFC would. I think they would easily put her over Ferro, but at the same time, I think that matchup is good enough to where the UFC wants to book it. But who's to say she doesn't end up, doing a super fight or something against Wei Li? So, it might be a waiting pattern there, but at first I didn't think Erin made the necessary adjustments from the last fight, and then she threw that on its face in the 3rd round. So credit to her. Definitely going to be rooting for her to get that title shot. The question is just when.
Yeah, I was very high on her up until the Monroe Fiora fight. I thought she was going to be a future champion, and I really still think she could be. She just had to learn, lost to somebody that was tough in Monroe, and she, that was kind of like a coming of age. I feel like, hey, I'm gonna learn from this, and then it looked like you said, halfway through that fight, she was same stuff, and it's just like, okay, maybe this is just the hole in the game, and she's gonna have to figure this out. Well, then she proved us that I did figure it out. As far as Rose, I wouldn't even mind seeing her against Grasso. That would be a nice champ versus 2 former champs if they don't do Blanchfield. If Blanchfield got the title,
didn't I'm completely forgetting now, going back to it because I started breaking down the fight, but she called out Grasso, right, Aaron?
I think so. Yeah.
I actually love that fight because I definitely think Erin needs one more.
I do too.
Not so much necessarily to have anything to do with the ranking, but I think personally it'd be better for her to get one more under her belt. You're
waiting for a long time, like you said, you're. And if Shevchenko does the super fight, you could do her. And I don't know if they'd want to do her too. For an interim title or something, we've seen that when Volk just went up to fight in the super fight. They did Yair and Josh Emmett, I believe, for the interim.
Yeah. The more I think about it, I think the Grasso fight is actually perfect because, what I'd like to see from Erin a little more is, the striking to set up these takedowns and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that's what was tricking her so much in the first 2 rounds. And then she, finally kind of figured it out and was able to implement the grappling. But as far as Rose goes, I think it might be very unlikely that she ever fights for a title again. But I do not think it's really a chapter closed in a downward trajectory. I still think she beats a lot of the women in that division. So they'll definitely find something for her.
I was just thinking, I feel like she took a tough one and then came back and won these 2. And this is kind of one of those where, I felt like, it was, the fight was in her hands. Like you said, those first 2 rounds looked really crisp from her. And then the tide turned a little bit. But Blanchfield is it to be slept on. And this is something I think that she proved, especially over the weekend.
Yeah, Rosie in the first round, she got that. She Blanchfield initiated the takedown, and then Rose got the sweep and got on top of her. So I mean, she's definitely got more to give for sure.
And I will say this was the third fight for Rose. Like this is the most active she's been in 4 or 5 years.
Right. That is true.
It's usually one fight per year that you see her in, maybe two. So,
Yeah.
But to get 3 fights in for her is pretty odd. So, all right, folks, we'll switch it over to this week's. We are getting the moment we have been waiting for. We talked about UFC 300. We've talked about International Fight Week, but nothing. It'll be remember at the end of the year and 10 years from now, where were you when UFC Apex 100 happened? Not what happened during UFC 300 or 400 or 200, 100, but what happened, where were you, and what card were you on? You can tell your kids that you got to watch UFC Apex 100. And it's none other than headlined by Uncle Neil Magny versus Carlos Parates. First, before we get those fights, can you guys name your favorite Apex card or fight?
Wow. Don't make me lie. I'll say this though. What's my guy? Lewis, Derek Lewis Apex. When he did was that Tua
Blade? No, that was Blade.
The Curtis Blades knockout. That was a good one. And we was like, oh, he's going back. I think he won. He got the record of that fight. Am I correct? Knockouts?
I don't remember if that was the record. I just remember he knocked Curtis Blades unconscious.
Yeah. Either way, there goes one.
That's Herb Dean's fault. That's all I remember.
Herb Dean get caught up in watching. Herb Dean be right there like, you can do it.
Yeah, favorite moment is tough. Mainly because the way the product is designed now, it all doesn't necessarily feel or look the same. But when you're trying to recall it, like, good luck. Like half the ones that I think are good, I look up and they end up being like pay-per-views that were in the Apex during COVID or something.
Yeah.
So,
and that Derek Lewis fight might as well. I think it might have been.
I'm not trying to sell short at all, that there are good fights in the Apex because we do see them. But as far as the, remembering of them and stuff, it's such a logjam in the brain. And, it's mainly just trying to keep up with the roster and stuff like that. And, I tweeted earlier today, I wonder in the future if the UFC is going to use their other UFC PIs in the different countries and like do events there and just keep all the fighters they're bringing over there, and they can like remain doing their, very cheap and lazy forms of production to get mass profit. Because, the big question is, UFC 100 is this weekend, but where are we going to be for Apex 300? Because it's coming.
Next year, baby. Next year to have.
Look forward to, baby. Yeah.
They are renovating Apex, the Apex to, put more people in. So that's quite entertaining. Yeah.
I
UFC
think that
300.
is wishful thinking. Like, I know they're talking about it.
It has to be headlined by Kevin Holland, right? I feel like Kevin Holland, he's fought the most in the Apex. He's one of the guys that I felt like was always in the Apex.
I mean, the one that sticks out to me the most would easily be Poirier and Hooker. Like, I don't really think, especially as far as back and forth, but that's like the easy layup answer because that fight was memorable and really had nothing to do with the Apex. It was more of, the DP like struggling early in the fight and then overcoming and just sending Dan Hooker out in the hospital. So, I mean, that's why we remember that fight. But who knows? Maybe that was like during the COVID days, and that doesn't count. Like the Apex 1 to Apex 100, we always get murky with it.
Yeah.
Apex 24 from Rob. I'll take your word on it, Rob. Who was it?
He wants to know who fought on Apex 1. Well, I guess Apex 1 was the pay-per-view, right? Would that be? Well, I guess that was the pay-per-view. I don't know.
I think Apex 1 would be considered whatever the first event was when it wasn't like a pay-per-view card and they did like the UFC fight night in Vegas, but it was in that building. And off the top of my head, I have no idea. But
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, hold on, wait. Look. What if I'm and this might be wrong. No, this is fight night. This is Nate Marquardt and Ivan Silveri, Chris Lieben, Patrick Cote. Is this?
Nah, they weren't using the Apex back.
That was just a fight night.
That's an old school card.
Yeah, Stephen Bonner. Yeah, this is just fight night, not UFC Apex. I got you.
So when I Google it, it says Brandon Porter. Well, this says Justin. I don't know. Let me see here. Let me try to. I guess it's called UFC Vegas 1. Is it UFC Vegas 1?
Yeah, I will go out on a limb and say it is the most forgettable fucking card ever.
Wow. UFC Vegas 1. We're on a hunt for this information.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the one that started it all. I
couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I feel like that's an accomplishment being able to forget it.
Yeah, who was the first fight? Who was the first main event in the Apex? UFC, also known as UFC Vegas 1.
Yes.
Gilbert Burns and Tyron Woodley.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. And Woodley lost. I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. Augusto Saki, Blagoy, Ivanov.
Yeah, read the rest of the card.
Yeah.
Let's see how many of these guys are still in the UFC.
No, it's literally nobody that's in the UFC.
Tyrone Woodley's not even in the UFC anymore.
I remember Brock Weaver. I remember Roosevelt Roberts because he eventually gets in the UFC tough. He eventually gets in the tough. Mackenzie Dern and Hannah Cyphers. I remember that. Yeah, and it's Daniel Rodriguez, Gabe Green, Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill.
So I'm being too harsh. UFC Apex was sounding pretty good.
That was 2020, Rob. He said what year? 2020.
Yeah, Brandon Royval, Tim Elliott. That's a good one. Anything with Tim Elliott pretty much turned out pretty good back then.
Brandon Royval.
So now we got Apex 100, and this will be like the thing. Like, where will these names that are on the card be in another 100 Apex things?
Remember, though, because Gilbert Burns won that fight. Then he was going to fight for the title against Usman, and he got COVID, and then they inserted Jorge Masvidal at Fight Island.
And then Jorge, the legend of Jorge Masvidal, took off.
Jorge fought him in 7 days or something like that, but he was already kind of training for him. They just never could get the contract right.
Yep, that was a blast from the past.
Right?
It's all coming back to me now.
I mean, just like if you look at
that was Stipe hasn't fought in front of a crowd since 2019.
Wow. Oh man.
Oh yeah, if you count, because the last one was at the Apex.
Yeah. And the DC fight was this DC3 was in the Apex. DC's last fight was in the Apex. Just.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's the main reason he retired. He's like, what's the point? If this is like, but all jokes aside, it will be interesting to see like these fighters on this card, where are they going to put them in like another 100 Apex from now? Wouldn't shock me if, they're hoping to have a few headliners in there, they're just like doing the mass like system. And, you got one fight I remember, I don't know if this was pre-Apex or if this was in, the Khamzat Meerschaert fight. I'm pretty sure that was in Abu Dhabi, right?
No, that was in the Apex. He fought twice in Abu Dhabi though the whole time, and then he came to the Apex.
Yeah, and that Gerald Meerschaert is fairly tough and comes back from stuff, but yeah, Chimaev was just like, nope, none of that.
Yeah, we'll look at this week's card. Like I said, it's hosted headlined by Uncle Neil Magny versus Carlos Perates. Which your Uncle Neil is 500 dog on it. What's your thoughts here,
man? Listen, you gotta get your stripes, man. Carlos Perates, very very well known, hard hitter, 20-6 right now. And the crazy part is, I think his record is not complimentary to how good he is as a fighter. I mean, he beat Radke, Giles in this promotion. Of course, he's got some other wins and promotions prior to. But when you really think you somebody, you got to fight Neil Magny, dog. And as a 500 dog on this one, bro. I don't know. This one is one of those that Uncle Neil might pull a trick out the hat, bro, and take him out. Get derailed in the Apex, brother. Huh? You're gonna come in here in Uncle Neil's yard right after all of this stuff is going on politically. Uncle Neil's gonna try and make an example out of you and show what happens when you step into his ring. But I don't get me wrong. Perates is in real life. I'm looking at some of the other stuff as far as shout out to my people from Tapology watching on IG right now. The fights from Perates' other previous promotions, he's taking these guys out. He is not playing. So it's tough for me to go against Uncle Neil Magny, but on this one he may have his just due and be taking a loss, man. It's real tough.
Yeah. Perates about to send Uncle Neil back to the nursing home. That's what's going to happen with Uncle Neil's about to go to the nursing home. Perates is going to smoke a cig right before he walks out there, and just be like, all right, about to whoop some ass. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it's a huge. I would maybe just sprinkle a little bit of money on Uncle Neil just because it's 500, Bobby, but I don't see a path to victory here.
Not unless he goes all the way to the end, man. Decisions with Neil Magny always are tough.
I mean, if there is one place to light up a cigarette on a walkout, it is Apex 100.
What?
Like that would be great. But
you imagine he just, what if he just hands a cigarette to Brad the Cut Man?
Yeah, I mean that line does not shock me at all. I think it's very justifiable,
especially after what he just did to the Leech.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like taking his name out of it, just seeing like when Neil does struggle, he struggles, and
yeah,
I think his goal will probably be to try to slow down the fight, hold him up against the fence, and use his strength. And I don't think Carlos is going to let him do that, at least right away. I could definitely see the humbling moment from Neil, but I don't know. Realistically, this fight is 5 rounds, and I don't necessarily think we're going to need them. So
yeah, I don't think so either. We haven't seen Neil Magny be able to, check a leg kick in the last 5 years.
Oh Lord, not a leg kick.
I would think we'll see lots of them.
I think Carlos is just
out there too. Like he's right now. Perates is on a roll. He got the performance of the night bonus with the Leech, Rank, and Trevin Giles. That's 3 in a row. So I don't know, man. Uncle Neil's looking mighty tough right now on this one, bro.
Yeah, I think Carlos is just going to throw way too much volume, and Neil's just going to struggle with it. And it's not counting Neil out at all. I get it's a complete fight. So, but it definitely would. I think be on Neil's side if he can slow the fight down and try to extend it, like into the third, or who knows how he goes with championship rounds. But this dude has a smoker's lung. His cardio is wild. You would not.
They saw him smoking cigs. They said 5-rounder. We need it.
yeah, and I think it's a very fitting Apex 100 fight, because literally it will be interesting to see where Carlos can go from here. They're obviously giving him Neil to really crack him into the top, and someone had to headline it, and with all the names that people are asking about headlining it, I guess it should be looked at as kind of an honor, as ridiculous as that sounds.
Yeah, I mean, who would not want to? They try to get Connor, but he's a little tied up in a court case to headline.
Well, it's why I'm bummed out that Cody Garbrandt had to pull out, because
I was just about to say Cody No Love had to pull out, bro. Yeah,
he would have made history for fighting on UFC 300 and Apex 100. I'm sorry,
I think he was on UFC 200 too, wasn't he? Was he on 200?
Cody Garbrandt being a little bit everywhere, bro.
He'll probably be on Apex 200 too.
he may not. He pulled out because he can't take too many more losses. Real quick, also on this card, Ricky Turos is on it. But Bobby, you mentioned Gerald Meerschaert versus taking on the one middleweight champion, Rainier de Ritter. I was actually a little surprised that they gave him Gerald. We kind of talked about it off air. I think I was a little surprised because I figured that he'd get somebody, at the bottom of them rankings there, just to see what he could do. But, giving him Gerald's kind of like, hey, this is a guy who's got a little bit of name. You should, but if you could possibly also lose to him, because Gerald can always pull out a victory.
And I think that's exactly kind of what they're doing. They're figuring, hey, you should be able to style on this guy, but at the same time, it ain't no cupcake matchup. So, it's very intriguing to me. Is this on the prelims?
No,
it might be on the. I think so. No, it's the third fight now. Because
okay, good. I was gonna say this is main card worthy. I was telling you, I think this is just good enough to where you can consider this an actual test, and I think they still kind of are trying to test this guy. Remember when MVP came into the promotion, they matched him up with Kevin Holland. MVP looked great, but the UFC thought they were giving Holland, a big leg up in that. So, I think they just know that Gerald is pretty experienced, and that will make it the tough out. And then they can kind of evaluate him from there and see, what they're going to do with him. Is this guy a title contender, or is he going to be headlining Apex cards? So that will all kind of get determined with this fight. And hey, for Gerald, if he's able to get this win, that's, another good feather in his cap to still be like, hey, I'm still around. And, every time that dude fights, I'm tuning in. He's always a tough out. It's always going to be a fight,
Yeah. He's right up there in middleweight wins as far as most wins. So, which is wild to think. Wait, you got any thoughts here real quick on Gerald Meerschaert and the one champion, or any other thoughts on this card?
I'm thinking in real life. First off, I'm looking up here on Tapology, man. So, and when it comes to one, he lost the belt twice. One time with TKO to Anatoly Malkin. That was tough. And then again to guess who? Anatoly Malkin. So it's kind of one of those, well, we got to see where you're at when you come over here to the UFC. But at the same time, as I look on the card itself, I look a little further down. Somebody that I've seen a little bit of allure around, I guess. Just in the world of MMA, some story that caught my attention. We got Gaston Balanos, I believe, and Cartavius Romeos, I believe that's how you probably pronounce it. 7-4. Gaston Balanos, man, I saw the video. This is like some K1, put the hands on him type right here. I like a stand-up type of fight. He's got 6 wins by knockout. And of course, we want to see knockouts. We want to see some big money striking when it comes to the UFC. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I mean, it's a little ways down the card. It's not like quite up there in the the main, but what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down? So I'm excited to see this one, just to cut the TV on and maybe see a good fight right at the very beginning. I don't think it'll last long. The prediction I got earlier definitely was saying it's a possibility that Gaston has one of those leg high kicks that take guys out. So I'm hoping that Contavious is prepared and it just doesn't end a little too early.
Go ahead, Bobby. You had something to add real quick?
Oh, going back to Anatoly. A lot of people on the UFC would lose to Anatoly Markov.
Yeah.
That fight was at Anatoly was coming down 2 weight classes.
Wow.
To fight dude. So I'm just that's probably my most intrigued fight on the card, as far as just did the UFC get a star coming over from one, especially because like if he has success, I think a lot of other people might follow his direction. I've been pretty on record saying I hope that Anatoly fights Francis, but at the same time, eventually I think the UFC is gonna come calling to him, because he just seems like a fun guy to market, going up multiple weight classes and stuff. But granted, that has nothing to do with Apex 100, but my brain kind of shot to that because it reminded me of those 2 fights. But it's a decent card for a Saturday at the Apex.
Yeah, man. Apex 100, baby.
Apex 100, baby. Well, this has been another great episode of Headkicks and Haymakers. Next week, we'll talk about the results. And also, we got, major stuff happening on next weekend. You got UFC 309, headlined by none other than Jones, Stipe. Also, it's Jake Paul, Mike Tyson week, baby.
What?
I mean,
Mike Tyson week? We forgot.
Yeah. I mean, might as well talk about the most uninterested fights of the weekend: Jones, Stipe, and Tyson.
No.
I can see the excitement on Bobby's face right now when you said Tyson and Jake Paul.
No, we are not doing that shit. We are not comparing the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight to Stipe and Jones.
I'm not comparing it. I'm comparing my least amount of interest in either one.
Well, that's your prerogative. I mean, I've been on record for a long time in saying this. I mean, that fight alone sums up a lot of stuff in the UFC for me. Both of those guys were dominant champions, and I'm probably the only person in the world that is looking forward to that fight. But I wish it was here sooner. But
me too. I wish it was about 4 years ago.
They're already rolling out all the packages and stuff. You can get caught up on all the things. Yeah, I know it's easy to, clown John Jones because of all his like problems and stuff like that. But no one has ever beat him. Go back and watch.
He's the GOAT. I said that. I'm in agreement. I just think this fight should have happened 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
2.5, at least 2.5.
No, see, I honestly think that makes no difference. You know,
makes a ton of difference.
You're acting like Stipe's like coming off the couch. The dude's a
He
fire,
is.
man.
Have
Like,
not
the stuff
seen him
that he
in
has
4
to do
years.
to keep his body like in shape at that level.
He's coming off the
think
fire
a
truck.
fight with John Jones is easy when he's hoisting up drunks over his shoulder, running out of a burning building, you know? And I think a lot of people are going to talk mad shit about this fight. And then the following Monday morning are going to be just glazing the fuck out of it. And I am honestly more interested in the post-fight pod than the pre-fight pod for this, because like these are how these moments are made, and I cannot.
Really good prediction after that.
Well, we'll talk about it next week.
And this is what Tom Aspinall needs, mind you. So you'll get what you want in the end. Just wait 2 more weeks.
We'll see what happens. We'll talk about it all next week. UFC 310 and or 309 and Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Can't wait. What a great weekend of fights. Can't wait next weekend. But this weekend you have the glorious Apex 100. So, and we'll be back next week, 8:00 Central, 9 Eastern, right here for another great episode of Head Kicks and Haymakers. See you guys. Have a good rest of the week.
I love it. You guys are so great.
Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, let's talk sport, friends. Thanks for watching.